What's up, y'all? Welcome to the Coach's Corner. I'm your host, Coach T-Mac. In today's video, I discuss a little-known receiver technique for contested deep balls. This technique will allow receivers of all sizes to create separation. If you want to catch these conversations live, I stream on Twitch every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday evening, and sometimes on Sunday. But make sure to like and subscribe to the channel to catch all my interview and conversation uploads. Now, cue the intro. It parts like the Red Sea. Nobody touches them.
No, it's like when you hear that you made the 105, it's like Christmas morning.
But if the ball comes in the B gap, I gotta make that play.
Right? So not everybody starts at ground zero equally.
This technique, it's all about creating minimal separation for contested deep balls. So there's a lot of times where you've got an athlete, he can go up and just go get it. You know, I'm bigger, faster, taller, stronger, jump higher. Those are awesome. But there's a lot of guys that are 5'10", 5'11", 6 foot, you know, that 5'9", that they can't, that's not in their repertoire, and they're going to go against DBs where that's not going to play into their strengths. And you've heard Sonny Dykes talk about once you stack, being able to control your pace and fading late to the ball. Well, this is a little bit of that, but it's a little bit different. Yeah, exactly. So there's some Smurfs out there. There's some short guys. There's some regular sized people playing receiver. That does happen. You know, not everybody is Josh Gordon, Odell Beckham, Calvin Johnson. But when I pull this up, we're going to watch it in real time, and then I want to walk you through the coaching points afterwards when we play it in slow motion, because I legitimately think if you can teach this, and if you can teach it correctly, that's the hardest part. If you teach it correctly, it's a continuation of our manipulation of the rules, right? Holding's not illegal. Getting caught holding's not is the part that's illegal. Pushing off isn't illegal. Getting caught pushing off is illegal. There's certain aspects of push-offs that are obvious and blatant and super illegal, but there's ways to create that space. And you see, you know, DBs who quickly grab an arm to turn a receiver's shoulders or slow him down. But this technique is something that is very subtle, but when you master it, it allows anybody in your receiving core to go win a contested deep ball. All right. It's funny that you brought up Baylor playing TCU, and that's why I switched game, because here we are. Okay. 10 personnel, 4 wide, but we're balanced 2-2, third down. So it's essentially, it's a 6-man box, but you know that, you know, they're playing 3-over-2 to both sides. It's like a one-off. Baylor never does that. We're going to isolate, throw it deep. Pretty decent situation, but we start to run out of real estate right there. Oh, I got you. Starting to run out of real estate. Who's that guy right there? And so it's not one of those things where you can just stack and run through the top of the route. So what you see is once Terrence wins on the outside, he begins to stack, but now it becomes a manipulation of pace, right? That little hesitation, okay, kind of puts the DB on his heels and gets him off balance. But there's a little bit more to it. So we fast forward to here. And then slow it down. Okay, so what I want you to look at, okay, this is the push-off that nobody ever wants you to hear, like no coach ever wants you to hear being said, but it's a push-off that is legal because it's unsuspected. She was delivering me dinner because she's the best ever. So right there. That was it. Okay, remember, we watched it full speed. He controls his pace. He gets on top, and he knows he's running out of real estate because of the end zone, things of that nature. So Robert can't just air it out and him run under it. So he knows he's got to drop into a bucket, and he doesn't want to give up his stack position by turning and jumping for the ball, because this guy's not a small DB. I mean, they're relatively similar in size. So when he slows down, he does push off. But if you notice, when he does it, he pushes off under the chest plate of his shoulder pads. Right there. Boom. And it's just a little downward press right here. Right, DB's just running into his arm. So when you do it, you teach your kids, you teach this at a half speed, and you're dropping the ball straight over their shoulder just like you would in a pat and go. But you're going to press onto their hip or the base of their rib cage. And then it's just a little, I don't know if you can see this, flip of your wrist out and down. And when you do that, you're moving their center of gravity, right? Instead of trying to, when you push their shoulder, it's obvious, but at the same time, you're not doing as much because that's not their core center of gravity. So that just little, you lean into them, and then you flip your wrist, this way. You flip your wrist down and press like you're doing like the up part of a dip. Refs are taught to look for extended arm outright for OPI. Exactly. So when you do this, you're going to roll that wrist down and then press like you're at the top of a dip, like in the weight room. And that's going to slow their center of gravity down and allow you to separate. Now, it's not a big separation, but it's enough to make a play. So now that you hear that description, watch the technique right there. Boom. Just a little subtle flip of his wrist, and that's what creates the separation. Just a little flip of his wrist right there creates a separation. Guy's off balance, has to try and dive to make a play. And all of that is set up because when he comes off the ball, he knows he's running out of real estate. Great cut block by your running back. But he stacks the guy right there and then flips that wrist, presses down on his hip, base of the shoulder. It's so the aiming point is just under his pads. Yeah, the ideal aiming point is kind of the base of that rib cage. You want to really catch them right in that area because that's the top of their core and that's the top of their center of gravity, so you can really start to slow them down, right? And as you push down, again, it keeps your arm down. If you'll train your brain to press down, then you don't have to worry about extending out, which draws the OPI call, right? So one more time from the wide angle, and then we'll watch the tight angle again too. So he stacks the guy here, and then once he feels he's slowing down and the guy gets into his space, he's just going to flip his wrist and press down on his hip. His aiming point, he's trying to press into his hip, but hitting him in the base of the rib cage. And that's what's going to create that space. And then this, beautiful 360 quality shows you what it looks like. Where we see the down, just a little subtle flip of the wrist right at the base of his rib cage, and that's what's going to allow us to create the space that we're looking for. Okay, again, it's not super technical. It takes a slow-paced block training style. You've got to, this is something that you do either in the spring or you make sure to do on like your bye week. So the key with that technique is don't let your arm go into full extension. Right. And if you do, but even if it does, as long as you are pressing at a downward angle into like through his ribs into his hip, it's not gonna look like the extension that you're used to seeing. Because even if we look right here, Terrence gets pretty extended. Let me pause this and pull it back up. Terrence gets pretty extended with his arm. And I'll try and pause it right when he's at full extension. See, his arm is pretty fully extended, right? But because it's at a downward angle, so press down, then shoot arm, hand straight up for the ball. Right, so what he's going to do, he's at full extension right here. I mean, his elbow's locked. But because it's below, for lack of a better term, below the nipple, because it's at the base of that rib cage, it doesn't look like anything, right? He's not contacting the shoulder. He's not contacting the chest. He's not doing anything of that nature. And then what we see is he's going to rip straight up with that arm to go attack the ball. So that's what allows where that guy's arm was to be ripped off. So we've manipulated their center of gravity and then ripped through what they're reaching for to go catch the ball. So, like I said, a very subtle technique, something that's very, it doesn't seem like a lot, and when you watch the wide at full speed, it doesn't look like anything. In your freeze frame, go slow, man, you can see push off, but no chance in real time. Exactly. We know that he's pushing off. We know that that's happening, but we also know that there's nothing they can do about it because we're manipulating what the ref's looking for. They're looking for hands up, shoulders, extension in that angle. When you work down with your extension, they don't see it because their eyes are trained to be chest level and up. Rip hands up so DB grabs an armor. Exactly. And like I said, if you watch, we'll go back here. If you watch this full speed, it doesn't look like anything. It looks like Terrence stacks him and just that little stutter makes the guy fall down. And you don't see that little extension until you slow it down. But it's there and it's practiced. We worked on that technique.